Hey everybody, welcome to the Marching Roundtable and Marching Arts Education. This is Tim Hinton, and I'm really excited. You might can hear a thunderstorm here in Florida. There's a thunderstorm going on. I'm excited to be talking to three really smart people from the Cadets. So, Adam Sage, how are you, sir?
Doing awesome. Thanks. Good to be
Thanks for
here.
taking time. Taking time to be here. Drew Shanefield, how are you, Drew?
I'm great. How you doing, Tim?
I'm wonderful. Really happy to get to talk to you guys. And on the phone, we can't see her, which is unfortunate because it would up our good looks quotient on this whole webinar. I'm stumbling over my words. Darcy Onks, how are you, Darcy?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So first off, guys, congratulations. Like, congrats on the show. Congrats on having a wonderful summer. It's really an interesting production, and I was excited to get to talk to you because I want to talk about a few things. And so I think that when you have a show that people want to I wonder what that is. I wish I knew. Like, that's interesting to me. So I think you guys are I hope you're having a great summer. How's it going?
Good, good. They're
Yeah,
working.
I mean, really moving into finals week. The Corps is performing in Erie tonight, then moving
Yeah,
into Indy for that final stretch. We're good.
absolutely. So Adam, I think people know, but why don't you just sort of say what each person's role is that's on the line today?
Sure. I'm a color guard designer for the drum corps and the guard, and doing some visual coordinating with the team.
Okay, and then Drew, your role?
Yeah, Tim, I am the brass arranger and also on the design team, the creative design team.
I mean, I know people know this, but I'm still going to ask. And Darcy, you're new to the cadets this year, right?
Yes, I am. And I'm
So
in a role as the artistic director, so kind of just big picture. We worked a lot together on the design team for the title and the colors and the props and kind of big ideas musically and visually.
So one of the questions, I guess one of the places I'd like to start is there's like a sort of a new thing going on. Like, there's a lot of new people involved in the core and in the design team and everything. So can we talk sort of about that? Because I think it's interesting anytime you have a lot of really smart people that come together and they're trying to build that chemistry and start sort of a new collaboration and all. So can we talk a little bit about how that's gone and how you were able to figure that out amongst each other? Adam, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, sure, sure. It's new for me on this side. I mean, I marched in the corps just a few years ago. Drew and I marched together, and Drew and I marched 2 years together in the Corps, and we actually taught several years together at the Cavaliers. So it's pretty cool to come together now on this side, working with the organization. So that's new for me and new for some other staff members. And I think the approach is a bit new for the drum corps as well. You know, there's when Darcy originally talked about the idea, proposed the concept and direction, you know, one of the things we talked about was, you know, bringing in something theatrical, that kind of look for all the performers. For me, you know, that was something that was really important for the color guard, to give them a character, give them a look that they could help promote the concept. So that the theatrical part of it maybe is a little bit new in the approach and the stage approach as well for the organization. So it's been pretty challenging and really rewarding to see how the kids are working through it, and how the team is coming together in cadet fashion, working to the very last minute and making sure, you know, the risks we're taking or the approach is all, you know, coming to fruition. They had some great rehearsal edits and details even this morning, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, cool. Drew, do you
Yeah,
want to talk about that? Or Darcy, why don't you go
Yeah.
ahead, Darcy?
No,
yeah.
of course.
If I can jump in on there, I just kind of wanted to give a quick shout out to somebody who wasn't on the original design team, but really kind of came in and wrote some beautiful closer drills. So I just want to give a shout out to John Bilby, who wrote the closer drill from all the way from England. And I think it's, you know, we're in the process of cleaning it, and the kids are really putting in some blood, sweat, and tears into this drill, but it's exciting and it's musical, and I think it's something to look forward to in Indy when you see that really cleaned up and running and gunning like the cadets can do.
I mean, Tim, you and I talked around this time about a year ago in a similar fashion. And I mean, 2018 had its challenges. We all know that, both on the field and off the field. And I think last year's production really kind of emotionally kind of tied that off really, really well. It was a great way for us to usher out 2018 and usher in something new. So with everything almost like that catharsis of last year's program, I think everyone felt great about heading into the off season, charged up and kind of challenged to not do the same, but to bring more to it and to have Darcy's vision and Darcy's kind of a somewhat non-traditional approach to programming, along with Adam's vision, and kind of hoping that musically Tom and Omar and Brandon and myself can kind of help keep up. It's been a real cool, challenging program for all of us. Very satisfying too.
Yeah, well, it's very cool, and I love the idea of bringing all these really smart people together and then seeing how they're going to make it work. And Darcy, of course, we know the great work that you guys have done at Dartmouth, and so I was like, everybody was like, wow, this is going to be fun to watch. Like, what's this going to be? How are they going to do it? So let's talk about the show itself. We talked a little bit before we started the recording, but there's not necessarily an exact story to this, because I felt like I knew what you were saying, but then I was kind of like, well, I know what I think it means, but like, I wonder what they're really saying. So do you want to speak to that? Like, is there a specific thing you want us to take away, or is there a specific story? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm happy to hear that was your reaction to the show. Some people have been saying it's a story show, but it's really not a story. It's everyone's story, right? So we really tried to set out and use this female character maybe as an example or a connection point where you could see yourself in this character at maybe any point in your life, or for some people, it's every day of their lives, where they maybe have been undercut or kind of taken down into pieces or not believed in, kind of underestimated, and how you carry yourself through that. And the other point of the show that I really connect with is, sort of when you separate based on your differences and you only see the negative about this other group of people, that just creates this vacuum of power and this chaos. That's kind of the middle section of the show. But if we can learn to come back together and, see what's beautiful about diversity and see what's great about females having opportunity and, different races, different religions, different, gender identities and orientations and all of these things, there's beauty in diversity. And when you have true equality, then everyone shares the power. We don't have to have power over others to be satisfied or to be happy in life or to be safe in life or whatever the fear is that leads to that humanity. I think we wanted people to connect with it on a personal level without telling a specific story. So I'm happy to hear that you were like, I get what they're saying. I think, it's easy for me to connect because of the female piece, but I'm happy to hear like so many people have come up and said, wow, that was very powerful for me as a man in this way, or as a father in this way, or as a kid in this way. In college, people didn't believe I could do it. But I did, and I had support from these people. So that it's great to hear that was your experience with the show as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's cool when a show makes me feel a certain way and I can sort of react to it personally. And so I'm kind of glad that was your intent, because that was sort of my takeaway, was sort of like, well, that moved me in a certain way and I sort of felt a certain way. And so it's nice to sort of keep it a little abstract. Adam, does that make it easier or harder to design?
No, I think that's what makes it kind of exciting and creative, the abstract approach. And just listening to Darcy, talk through that made me think about. I mean, that's really those were the reasons that we chose in terms of costuming, where the drum corps has a very period look in the beginning of the show, the military feel. It hints, the branding, who the corps is, the organization. But then as you see as the program goes and progresses, layers change and they morph. They unzip the jacket. At one point prior to that, they reveal a blue piece of fabric that connects to the bridge over troubled water. Then the gold when they unzip the jacket. So they shed layers or change those layers, which is the same thing for the color guard. So, from a story standpoint or just a direction in terms of the abstract approach, it really did inform costuming choices and flags and colors and how we use, the female symbol in the show and the male symbol, but even how that morphs. And at the end of the show, where you'll notice on the last flag, there's an equal sign. And then we took the Garfield logo, the G, and morphed it into a symbol that connects to what we've been doing in the program with the male and female symbols. So it's been pretty cool to address those choices as it relates to the concept. And I think it has an intellectual component that it's great when people are allowing the program to come to them and they find those nuggets and those tidbits, to see how that is helping to, tell our idea, to showcase our idea.
Yeah, Drew, do you want to speak to that at all?
I mean, the challenge for us musically is to realize that vision through sound, through music. So, in the show has these peaks and valleys that sort of speak to an emotional palette, and to compose music with emotion in mind is really, really challenging, but it's also really, really satisfying. So, like the show begins with something that's very stately and grand and steadfast, and then the music goes into deconstruction and kind of falls into anarchy. Then to create music of rebuilding, of a music of rebuilding, music of salvation, music that pays forward to the future, and then this general feeling of celebration and understanding that not to get too deep, but through all the diversity of what we're kind of hinting at, deep down inside we're all made of the same stuff, and then to do that through instrumental music has been a really rewarding, definitely challenging, but definitely a super rewarding process as well.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, any show that includes the Ginastera Estancia is like a great show to me. I love what you've done with it, and I think it's cool, and I think it fits like what the story is, and so that's the part I was super excited when because I just love that music.
Well, Tim, I mean, the other thing that I think, the other thing is that, oh, cool, right? I mean, the other thing is that Darcy and Adam and myself and everyone on the team, Tom and Omar and Brandon and all the visual team, we're all like big drum corps junkies as well. So like we want to go fast and to spin hard and to march and to drum and to play and to, you know what I mean? That's kind of that Garfield cadet way, is how much can we put in there? So, at its surface level, it's just good old drum corps if you want it to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. And so I'm so glad, like, I always want to make sure that it feels like drum corps at some point at least, and so there definitely that happened. I think it's very cool. So all right. So I know that after the ballad, we have these interesting guard things. There's a male symbols, there's female symbols, but I don't understand necessarily what that part of the show is saying. So can you explain, there's is it a rap tune or a pop tune, or can you guys explain that part to me? Because that's the part where I'm like, well, I get this and I see the male and the female and all, but I'm not sure. And again, Darcy, you may be rolling your eyes because you may be like, no, I don't want to tell you what you're supposed to think. So, but But can you give me clue in a little bit of more about what that part is about? Because I do think it's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, so I think the inspiration for that came from the cadets, and they've done anything you can do, I can do better. And so we just took the last two words of that, do better. And it's kind of a modern take on kind of the male female thing, anything you can do, I can do better. So you go back and forth between these male female symbols, but in a playful way, right? We see kind of the bridging to the future generation with that, but the message there really, I think from a design team as well, is we can all do better. Like, and by that I mean us old timers, like people who are in the generation that always complain about the young generation, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute, maybe we should look in the mirror and get off social media and appreciate that what these young people are doing. And so you'll hear the lyrics in there, we can do better, you can do better, I can do better. It's not about pointing fingers. It's just this look at, come on, guys, we can all do better as, as a drum corps, as an activity, as an individual, as a society, as a country, whatever you kind of connect with that. And then it's also just a really modern, fun, quirky drum feature, really, that features that front ensemble and the amazing percussion that is the Cadets.
Yeah, that's cool. So Adam, let's talk about these things they're spinning. It's cool. Like I love when there's something unexpected and I'm like, what is that? And that's really interesting how that moves. So like how did that come about? Because I think those are cool.
Well, yeah, they are pretty cool. I'm sure the members will say they are really challenging because they are. But it, beyond, it gave us a really cool way to design a weapon. The cadets, the first year they did that was when we marched in '91. And the color guard, the entire color guard spun. It's in my garage right now. I can go get it. This is true. It's shaped as an S, right? And it's big, and it created an amazing look. It was very difficult, and how you were spinning it, the balance, the weight, what you were looking at in the air, But the cadets really started that with something non-traditional, but spinning like a weapon, that year. And throughout the years, they have rediscovered a couple of things, curves, different shaped weapons along the way. So when we were going into this production to, how can we interpret that, like Darcy was saying, in terms of the musical direction, how can we interpret that with the guard? And so that's when we went with the shape, which is a curve and a circle, the circle and the male and female symbol at the top. So certainly the man that created them and actually made them did a fantastic job. And it's been a really, a very cool, challenging way to choreograph and also for the members to work with it. It's not easy. It's not easy at all, but it has a really cool look and something unique to help, that particular part of the production look new and fresh and moving forward, which is the.
No, it did. And it helped me clearly. I saw the male symbol, the female symbol. Like I got that, and I thought that was really interesting. So I think this is one of those moments there where you're doing it so well that we don't know how hard it is. That must be frustrating because.
Well, my favorite thing is when people call it a prop. It is not a prop. It is a weapon. A prop is something I don't know. But even our props in the show are active. It's on a backdrop in the program. The members are using them, they're manipulating them, it changes the design space, and the members are active part of that, which is a huge responsibility. And it is a challenge in terms of design. But those weapons are weapons. They're just shaped differently. And I know the members have certainly been challenged, and they go for it. They love the challenge.
So let me ask you one other thing about those. So I'm assuming there was a whole, this is just want to make sure people understand how this works. There's a whole process of saying, we think we want this curve that has this thing, and like, did somebody make one and then you went and tried to spin it? And And
Yeah.
like how does that process unfold? Because I think it's way more involved than people think, and I just want to remind people of how hard that is.
Right, exactly. Well, it started with a sketch on a piece of paper, of which we gave to Scott Litzenberg, the core director, and he knows someone who can create and put this together in terms of woodworking, and he made a prototype, and we looked at it and we took it down and shaped it and just kind of played around with that to get it as right as possible, because it has to also have the weight to be able to spin and toss and so
Right.
forth.
So
Yeah.
were there like 10 iterations of this thing, or 3, or
One. Yeah. I
okay?
think
Who is
we
this?
have to give props to Joe Heiniger actually sketched the first kind of prototype, and then the man who made these like got it right the first time. Basically, it was incredible.
Unbelievable. That's so impressive to me that it would work. Like I thought there would be like 20 of them of different iterations laying in some sad pile somewhere. So like that's amazing.
Yeah. The other thing I think about them that I know Adam's saying that they're weapons from like a color guard perspective, like they're actually heavier than a rifle. I think spinning wise, they're definitely, it takes that skill set and maybe even a little bit more because of the weight. But I love that visually, because of the message of that song, that we can all do better, not to get too political, but I like the fact that they're not a literal weapon. Like, yes, the skill set required to spin them is what color guard people have to spin a rifle or a saber. But I like the fact that we're saying we can all do better, and it's a curve with those symbols on it. I think that is just an added layer to that song that's really important to note.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense.
We also purposely created the color palette. The female curves and the weapons that they're spinning are purples and blues, and then the guys are more oranges and pinks. So that was kind of purposeful in our color palette, the storyline.
Wait, the cadets doing something unexpected, turning things on their ear? Come on. No, that's really cool. And I'm going to watch for that because I don't think I maybe consciously realized that. So that's really interesting. I love that. So you mentioned the props. So this is maybe one of my big questions is Darcy, you have these giant things that turn into these bridges and you use them in all kinds of interesting ways. So I have a bunch of questions about those, but my first one would be like, is it just you knew you were playing Bridge Over Troubled Water, the bridge thing? Like, is it that obvious, or is there more to it you want to say about how that came to be?
So it actually started, I don't even know if we decided 100% on the Bridge Over Troubled Water piece, but we had definitely decided that we needed this palatial grand staircase. And I really didn't want to just stick a staircase out there and have it be a staircase the whole show. And I also didn't want a million little props. So it was important that they could, I actually used my hand in little arcs on a computer webinar design meeting and said, well, I think if we face a staircase forward and then you turn it on its side, it becomes a bridge. So, and then, we're really proud of the fact, which I don't know if the activity fully is maybe ready for this, but we did not try to hide any prop moves. We tried to really make each prop move part of our show and in the character of the musical piece and in what we're saying visually in that musical piece. So, and I think even the kids are, we're still developing and really trying to say, like, don't hunch down and try to hide. Like, the props start in this palace formation, and then as the show goes on and this, anarchy that Drew talks about happens, we wanted each separate group to pull that apart and take for their own. And so you don't want to hide the characters that are pulling that apart. You want to incorporate it into your show. Same thing with building the bridge. We wanted them all to come together and rebuild what they destroyed into something newer and better. So we don't want to hide the people doing that. We want to see them working together to rebuild the structure into something else. Like, it might not be what it originally was, but you can move it and manipulate it and work together to create something even better. And that's literal and very symbolic in our show. I think our show has a ton of symbolism that you can read in personally, like we talked about, but also in the story of the Cadets, the 85-year story, not just the story of recent times. And then we actually, I don't know if you caught this, but we put it into an X for the Do Better section, because that's the chromosome that we all share. That's what we have in common. And then it becomes kind of these pillars of equality for the closer, which each person that goes up in the end represents different sections of the core. We have different genders, we have different races up there, all, equal and sharing this moment at the end of the show. So the props were really important for us. We don't try to hide any of their transition, but they help us definitely with the overall kind of concept of the show.
And musically, Tim, we've had a ton of fun with the props as well. There's places where we spread them at the four corners of our stage, and tubas on one, baritones on one, mellophones on one, trumpets are on one, playing technical passages, kind of ping-ponging back and forth.
That's
so
cool.
You're working on the X plane, the Y plane, and the Z plane. You know what I mean? It's really cool. I mean, we're doing it's really fun. I kind of perk up when I think about it. Starting in April, right when I know Darcy remembers because we had tears in our eyes when the props came out. We were so happy. Trying to set them up. Okay, well, what if we play the trumpet feature with you guys on top of the prop, and how about some of you hang upside down from the prop and let's try to play. Okay, that won't work, but the idea is right. So let's try if we spin them, and everyone will spin them clockwise, but everyone else will run around them counterclockwise. And what if after 64 counts we stop? Where is the prop? And then can we do something cool? Like, it was really not only on the grid in terms of like the Pieware and the Sibelius files, but it was also like, okay, how far can we take it and what can the kids do? And to their credit, they're so gung-ho and so resilient about any of the ideas. And it's not surprising to know that a lot of the cool ideas come from them. Like, you're watching them playing on the prop, spinning on the prop, tossing equipment from the upper level to the bottom level. You know what I mean? It's been really a labor of love working with the equipment as well.
Yeah, and Adam and I were talking about this the other day. Think about the zero room for air that those rifles have when they're tossing on those stairs. Like, they're on a stair. Like, if you throw forward just an inch, you have to move down a stair to catch that thing. And you've seen the kids be able to really become proficient on those stairs, and the demand, what we're asking them to do on those stairs. I don't know if people actually realize that when they watch. If I throw a toss and I'm on the ground, I can move myself forward, back, side to side, and I can catch. But if I'm on the stairs, you can't really do that. If I go left, I'm going to fall off a 10-foot prop, So it's made the kids, really good. And I just can't speak highly enough about the members of the Corps and the challenges that we've given them and that they're rising to. But I don't know if someone watching, if they make it look too easy, and it's like, well, yeah, they threw a toss and they caught it. It was like, well, they were on a 10-inch stair, like with no room for error at all.
Right. Even if they were on a stage that was elevated, that's completely different than a step. You know what I mean? And then one part of the program where they have drummers, they have color guard, dancers around them, and the rifle line is throwing tosses and doing choreography on a step with all of this around them. Talk about restricted space. But when Darcy was talking about like just the structure or the DNA of the prop and how it morphs and changes. Really, if you just think about the shapes and what they do over time, that is the story, right? That is the story. It really does become a huge component, intellectually and aesthetically, to help to tell the story, you know. That's a risk, you know, and like she said, we're moving them. It's a part of the program, and like I said, really, as of even this morning at rehearsal, you know, we're sending notes and doing, you know, conference calls about, you know, how do we change this, or how do we change, you know, this angle, or the motion, you know, just so it's just right. You know, it's a project that we'll go, I'll keep working on every single day, you know.
You know, I definitely think, like, maybe because I'm a designer or whatever, but I definitely felt the sense of sort of daring. So some of these things that are happening on these steps, like, I think that comes across, even though we see that they're proficient and probably people don't know how hard it is, granted. But I do think there's a sense of, like, of the risk, and I think that's exciting. I think that really adds to what you're trying to say. I think that that part definitely came across to me. And so I want to mention this. People moving props around is really hard to not, like, just make it look like somebody moving the props. So I think it's interesting. I just want to point out to people that might be watching this, like, there's real thought that goes into exactly how are they moving, how are they looking, how are they holding their body, what kind of force are they, like, that's all thought out, and that's why it works in each instance. So Darcy, clearly you guys have these conversations about, you know, how should they look when they're moving it in this way, so that it makes sense, sort of that emotion, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, we were talking to the members about it. You have to kind of, like in theater, right? You have to overdo it. So on the part where they're ripping it apart, obviously they're, you know, it's very angry. It's very almost violent. Like they're really like ripping these things apart. And in the ballad, going in to actually build the bridge, we wanted them to look a little, you know, forlorn, like it's heavy work here. We are rebuilding what we broke. And so they look a little sorrowful, and, you know, like they're helping each other push these together. And here, let me grab one more person to help. Like, we're really working together to do this. And so we're trying to make that, you know, a character of the show. Hopefully people don't look at it and go, wow, those things must be really heavy, because look at all the people that they have put them together. Well, you know, maybe that's a little bit of it, but it is really, it's part of the story. And if they really looked at, like Adam said, over time, you know, at some points we move those with 4 or 5 people. So when we have 20 around them in the bridge, it's choreographed to be, it takes a community to rebuild what we tore apart, you know.
And, you know, just adding to that, you know, it was, and it has been, like an initial process and a design process, but we have to remind ourselves and remind the members, we zoom out a little bit, and, you know, because we all get so caught up in, you know, working on the drill move or the musical part or the color guard part or whatnot, and we, you know, we have to remind them too that it is an added responsibility in terms of the theatrics or the acting, and, you know, and how they approach that set piece. You know, that is just as important as a musical passage or a visual passage. You know, their action with the set pieces.
Well, and I do want to say, like, I love the first iteration of it where she comes down the stairs, and who's on either side of her? Is it
drumline?
The drum line. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the drum line. Okay, I just, like, that to me, I just love that image. Like, it's just her coming down. Like, I totally knew exactly what you were saying. Like, that totally made sense to me. So I want to ask you this one other question, Darcy, because people are having discussions about this. Some people are saying, oh man, I don't think they used the props enough, and other people are saying no. So I'm like, that's the other thing I want to ask. People that are, when you have these giant props, you have a responsibility to use them enough that it makes sense that they're there. But then, like, how do you make that decision of how much time on them is appropriate? Or like that's been a discussion that some design friends have been having. It's like, well, you know, I think they should use them more. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure that's really true. So like, I know you're so smart at this and you have this history. So can you talk about that decision at all? Like, are we using them enough, or should we put somebody on them more? Or, gee, it's too much. It's all about the props now. And like, that seems hard to figure that out. How did you talk about that process?
Yeah, well, first of all, can you call me every day, because you're making me feel really good about myself.
Okay, good.
But I would say we really wanted to make sure and that they set the stage, right? And so when you're thinking about theater or anything, indoor percussion, whatever, you want to set the stage, and the stage should tell the story. So you talked about Dartmouth, right? And I'm sure you saw the Barbie show, right? When you set the stage, we didn't have to play a note, and people probably said like, "Oh, I get that. Look at that. They made a toy shelf," right? And so this, we would say, we set the stage. We made a palace, and then we broke it apart into these angular pieces that we use for separate cliques and groups separated based on differences, right? And so we want to use them for that. You want to be careful that you're not just making your show all about the props. I think it's kind of like the, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You have to do it just right. You can't overuse them or underuse them. I think they set the stage so that even when somebody's not on them, they still contribute to the show. So there are parts where I just like to look at the field, and the props in scale had to be that big because you're on a football field. You're not inside an arena, and nobody's on them, but they set the stage for me. I get satisfaction from just looking at the picture. I don't have to always have a performing member up on the prop. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of like how I think about it. And you also want to kind of save, like in Do Better, you want to save it for a certain effect. Like we wanted really every single person in the brass to be going up and over that X and creating this effect, but we wanted to do it on the part where it was like, we can all do better. And so it was important to wait for that moment, and not, if you have people up there all the time, then when you get a big group of people up there, it's not as effective because you've been using it the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, Drew, if everybody plays double F the whole time, it stops being loud. Like we all know
Exactly.
that. Right? Yeah. So that's a really interesting analogy. And I love that you just said that, Darcy, because that makes sense, because like you said, you have to save some looks for the moments when you want that to be the effect. So that makes perfect sense to me. And I do think I do think the palace is clear. I think the breaking apart is clear. I do think all that really works. So, and then clearly we know when there's a bridge. So like, I think what you're doing, I got it, but I do think it's an interesting discussion, because props are really confusing and hard for a lot of people to figure out in this day and age. I have to have them, but then what do I do with them when I have them? And do I, so I like to have that discussion, because it's tricky, and you're really good at it. So I do think that makes sense. Adam, do you want to speak to this?
Well, I just add to that, because even yesterday, coming out of Allentown, we had a design call yesterday talking about some moments in the back half of the program that we have to continue shaping, and how are they moving them. And we were saying, well, do we leave them in one place because we're working through these transitions? And like Darcy said, they have been an active part of the program. We have to move them forward towards the end, and we use these new banners towards the end of the program for an ending effect. So we have to use them. We have to move them. We have to continue that process. So we had some really good conversations yesterday, and found better ways in which to do that last night and this morning with the drum corps. But that it's a huge part of the production, and not just going on top of it, but also what does the set piece do in terms of the totality, the staging, the drill, So yeah, it's a good challenge, right?
Yeah.
And we may have one more little secret with the very last prop formation, so stay tuned.
I love it when those of us that make it indie get to get to experience the surprise of whatever. That's going to be fun. We've got that to look forward to this week. That's awesome. And I would not expect anything less from this team. So, well, this has been a really interesting discussion. I think the fact that it's sort of a new team and you've taken some chances and you're doing all this stuff, like, I think it's really interesting, and I understand it better, even though, like, you're not, again, I like this idea that you're not telling me exactly what I'm supposed to think. I like bringing something to the table myself. So I like having a little space for me to bring myself to it, my thoughts. I think it's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. All right, so any final thoughts? So let each of you say any final thing before we go. I really appreciate you taking time to have this conversation, all three of you. Drew, final thoughts from you about any of this, anything else about the show you want to mention before we go?
I mean, I'm looking, we're at a point now, Tim, where it's exciting because now we have to hand it off to the kids. You know what I mean? It no longer becomes Darcy's or Drew's or Adam's or Tom's or any other designers. And it's not even the caption heads anymore. Now it's all about what the performers are going to do to bring it to life. And in the end, I mean, that's what this is all about. This is all about their performance. So it's exciting to kind of head into Indy knowing, okay, kiddos, it's nerve-wracking, it's exciting. No, okay, kiddos, it's all on you. Let's have some fun with this thing. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I talk to people about that all the time. At some point, it has to become their show, and here's their time. Adam, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, no, just to kind of add to what Drew's saying, it's really it's an opportunity for the performers now. Their comfort level gets better and better and better. Their technical achievements get better, but now emotionally, how they can lose themselves more in this. Because seriously, it's been a huge project, a lot of responsibility for them. And now they get to, we could tell, live in Allentown, and even at rehearsals, they get to step back now and really emotionally deliver. And that's a huge consideration. It's a huge component, right, into the program, is what the members can do emotionally and connect. And that's really important for all of us. And the members are really getting excited to do that.
That's fantastic. Darcy, final thoughts from you.
I would say, obviously, I agree with both Drew and Adam, and I would say the show is a tribute to the members of the 2019 Cadets, and also a tribute to women in the Cadets for 50 years, and just the history of young people in the activity. And it's, I know there's a lot of bickering online, and social media probably hasn't been the best thing for drum corps, but if we all just remember what it's like, the performing arts and the pageantry arts and drum corps specifically, I know it shaped me, as a person and what I do every day in my job. And it's just such a wonderful, awesome activity. And I know the kids, the members this year always say, like, I have so much fun and so much energy, and this show is so emotional for me. And I really, just like we want the audience members to connect with it personally, it was really important that each member of the Cadets could connect with the show as well. And I definitely think that they do, and they'll be able to harness that connection over this week, and get in some really great rehearsal days. And when you rehearse, or when you do anything with that passion and that connection and that sense of purpose on a really personal level, some pretty miraculous things can happen. So I just wish the best for them. They've been an amazing group of young people, and I kind of, with the show, I think my generation of people, and we can do better by these young people who are choosing to spend their summers off and away from screens and on the football field, sweating and being artists, for our entertainment, and we should appreciate them for that.
Well, I love that, and I love the message of the show about embracing the diversity, and we can all do better, and we can. And it's funny you say that, because I've been saying that a lot to people. We have to remind ourselves that even though the shows are different and they look different and they're wearing different things, and there's all that stuff that gets everybody all up in a Twitter, but like I went to do a bunch of live interviews this summer, and like, you drive up and they're all sitting around having cereal out of a plastic bowl, and they're sleeping on the floor, and I'm like, this is still drum corps, and they're still having a fantastic experience. They're getting great educational teaching. They're having that drum corps experience that we all had, even though it seems so different. If you go show up at a site, they're all sitting around schlepping stuff, trying to sleep on the floor for 10 minutes. So I love reminding people of that. And I like that your show is sort of a nod to all that stuff. They're having a great summer. Those kids are having a great experience.
Yeah, and they're great kids too. So.
Yeah, and you're right. They're out there making it happen and working hard. So all right, well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you guys so much for taking time to talk to me. I know you're super busy. Here it is, finals week, so we're all excited. I hope I get to see all of you in Indy and say congrats to you in person. And again, thank you for taking time to talk.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Find other interviews and videos from top DCI designers, instructors, and marchers, behind-the-scenes videos, interviews, and podcasts from winter camps, spring training, traveling during the season, and performances, all at marchingartseducation.com/DCI-2019. The Marching Roundtable is proud to be an official media partner of Drum Corps International.